Welcome back to another episode of the Tech Talks Daily podcast. I'm your host, Neil C. Hughes, and today I've got Robin Gandhi, the Chief Product Officer at Nium, who's going to be joining us today to share his insights and thoughts around how technology can transform the way that businesses manages their payroll on a global scale. And they're using innovative technology to simplify payments and ensure compliance, even when dealing with diverse currencies and regulatory landscapes. So in our chat today, we'll talk about the acceleration of digital B2B payments post-COVID, the role of Nium in supporting companies, and also the need for transparent and real-time payroll operations, and why in today's hybrid working world, it's never been more important. So buckle up and hold on tight, because no matter where you're listening in the world, I'm going to be beaming your ears all the way to San Francisco, where Robin is going to be joining us on today's episode. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Robin. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure, of course. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. So again, my name is Robin Gandhi, and I am the Chief Product Officer at a company called Nium, where we help companies move money around the world, and we do it in real time. It's been an exciting journey. I've been here since last January, so I've been here for about a year and a half, but I've been in the payment space for a long time now, or generally a long time. I've been in this space for about a decade now, maybe a decade and a half. But I was at Adyen, which a lot of folks may know, but we help companies with global merchant acceptance. We do it for all companies, whether you're taking an Uber or buying a pair of Nikes. That's what we did. But yeah, it's been exciting to be here at Nium, and I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Awesome. It's a pleasure to have you on here. And I suspect after a decade in the industry, you've seen so many big changes along the way. And I am conscious that there'll be some people listening, hearing about Nium for the very first time. So for those people, can you offer a few insights on how you're on this mission to transform the landscape of global payroll management? Because it's a pretty big mission you're on, isn't it?
It is indeed. I think when we think about all the complexities that come with global payroll, and I think global payroll has become so much bigger post-COVID. I think you've seen the acceleration of digital B2B payments as a result of COVID. And what we're really trying to do is we're trying to make it so that, software companies that are trying to build payroll solutions on top of our infrastructure can do it in a way that makes it really easy for them to basically pay employees, contractors all over the world without necessarily having to think about what are the compliance issues, how does someone get paid, how do they get paid fast, what is the payment mechanism. So it's all those complexities that we're thinking about. And when you think about companies that some of your audience may know, like Panther and Ripling, which are platforms that basically enable other companies to have employees and contractors wherever they may be in the world, especially as this world completely changes and flips around post-COVID. Those are the types of companies that our infrastructure helps to power. So they do what they do well, and we do what we do well, which is really just helping to make that money move in a seamless way.
And a moment ago, I mentioned some of the big changes you may have seen over the last decade, and more recently in the last few years alone. We've seen this huge shift to distributed nature of distributed work, distributed teams and workforces working around the world, etc. So I'm curious, with this hybrid working and remote working world that we find ourselves in now, what unique challenges do businesses face in ensuring a smooth payroll operation, and how are you addressing that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because before COVID, if you had said, "Hey, how do I have a distributed workforce, or how do I even hire somebody outside of a place where I have an entity or where my business resides?" A lot of people would say, "Wow, I have no idea. This sounds extremely complicated because I don't know what the employment laws are. I don't know if I need an entity. I don't know if I need to pay tax. I don't know how I even get money to the individual. Do I have to use a bank? What do I do to get money there?" Right. And so what really changed as a result of the last few years of everyone basically sitting at home and then starting to move around the world, and then all of us realizing that maybe it's not crazy to think that people don't have to be in the office all the time. And actually, I can take advantage of the fact that there's people all over the world who can help me. And maybe it might even be cost effective and allow me to have people working 24 hours around the clock. And so I think that's what changed, right? And then you think about like the payroll issues around that, like what we're doing along with the software companies like the Panthers, Riplings, Deals, Papaya Globals around the world is we're basically they're providing the software that allows you to think through how do I onboard a company and their employees or their contractors, what employment laws do we need to think about? And we're making it really seamless for them to basically say, hey, you need to pay somebody, and not just one person. You probably need to pay 20 people in Brazil and 30 people in India. And how are you going to do that in a seamless way? So we've really expanded a lot of our network coverage throughout the entire globe. And then we've said, like, in the end, if you're a contractor or employee, what matters is that you get paid on time for the amount that you think you're going to get. So then all of a sudden, like, you have to get FX right. Like, how much money do I need to put into the system so that when the individual gets their money, that they get exactly how much they thought? And how do we ensure that, on payday, that money actually arrives and that somebody doesn't say, oh, sorry, there was an error. We messed up your name, or something got stuck in the system. So a lot of things that we're doing around ensuring that payments go through on time with the right FX attached to them, and that companies know how much to pay into it using some of our direct debit functionality really makes it just so much more seamless. And I think that's one of the reasons that you've seen both the platforms grow and you've seen our business also grow along with them, because in the end, that's the kind of expectation that the software platforms that we service want. And in the end, it's the employee and the contractor really need. Otherwise, they're going to move somewhere else. But yeah, it's an interesting space to be in. And I think if you can solve it in the right way, these companies are growing like crazy. And if we can help them grow, then we'll grow as well.
And I'm glad you mentioned foreign exchange rates, because I know that is a huge problem for distributed teams. And I'd love to learn more about how you've recently enhanced your payroll payment solution to include transparent foreign exchange rates. So can you tell me a bit more about that, and also how the feature is expected to impact the experience of not just the employees, but the employers as well?
Yeah, no, I mean, the way that we, as we talk to more payroll customers and platforms about how they wanted to pay their underlying contractors' employees, the more we realized you want to have both transparency and consistency. You want to be able to understand how much is it that I need to pay today, so that the contractor and employee 2, 3, 4 days from now get paid exactly the amount that they expect to get paid. And so that's really what we've done with our FX offering, where we basically allowed a lot of the platforms to choose how long they want to have before they pay us. And then based off of the amount of time that they want, we'll say, hey, we are taking X currency risk. And as a result, here's how much you need to pay us on day 0, so that on day 4, everyone that needs to get paid gets paid on time and for the right amount. And so that's really what we've changed around the way that we think about FX when it comes to payroll.
And I think over the last few years, we've seen the huge global tech skill shortage. We've seen the great resignation trend as well, and Gen Z entering the workplace, and they're all about employee experience. And I was reading that the ability to pay in real time is emerging as a significant factor in employee retention. So can you tell me a little bit more about Nium in facilitating real-time payments, and also ultimately how it impacts that employee experience?
Yeah. So where Nium has really pushed further than I think a lot of others is that we really believe that real time is the way forward. And if you look at our flows, more than 3/4, I think about 80% of our payment flows are on real time. And the reason that it matters is that when you move money at that speed, you basically remove a lot of the friction and inefficiencies within the system, right? You no longer need to think about payday loans. You no longer need to think about unnecessary working capital. You remove a lot of operational and human costs that go into systems that are not in real time. But then when you take that to the next step and you think about what does that mean for payroll, today, if you look at the global real-time payments network, so with the exception of the US, who is expected to be in real time sometime this summer with FedNow, there are so many countries around the world that you see that are already on real time. Most notably, people talk about UPI in India, people talk about Pix in Brazil, but there's an expectation now in the world that I should receive my money as fast as it takes me to do basically anything else in my life. And then when you think about what that means for the way people work today, a lot of people, especially when you think about contractors, they're really working paycheck to paycheck. And as a result, if you want to deliver on the promise of being able to offer global payments and global payroll, you have to be able to do it in real time because people are expecting their money that they earned for working immediately. And I think it's just something that has become part of what we see in the world today across everything. But payments impacts us on a day-to-day basis, right? You need money to live. So if you don't get that in time, then that becomes a problem, right?
Yeah. And like I said at the very top of the show there, you have a lot of experience in embedded payments. So can you tell people listening a little bit more about what you've seen around the evolution of this space and how it's impacting the operations of businesses, especially in the wake of uncertainties in the traditional banking sector that we've seen recently too?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, first of all, when we talk about embedded payments in the end is really taking some of the infrastructure that we build and others build and being able to put it into businesses for them to run more efficiently. I think that as a lot of technology infrastructure like our own has become very API based, it's extremely easy to be able to then put payments into the overall experience so that you can basically create some of the things that you just talked about, right? Like how do you make an operations of a business more efficient? I think when we talk about uncertainties in the traditional banking sector, I think where companies like us start playing a role is that because we're sitting in a place where essentially we're not a bank, right? We're not taking risk on other people's money. What we're doing is we're safeguarding people's money for the purpose of moving it for things that we just talked about, right? For example, for payroll. So if somebody puts money into our system for the purpose of making payroll, we're not sitting on the side and investing it into any other assets. It's sitting there for the purpose of sending money out to those contractors' employees. And so I think a lot of these trends that we're seeing, like we talked about, like you see what's happening with the banking sector, you see where all of a sudden now it makes it really easy using APIs to be able to move money within a business that's not necessarily geared for money, but you can make that overall experience better. These are the trends that we're seeing. And I think that's why you're seeing companies like us really finding a place where we can serve customers and then also doing pretty well in this market, given what the needs are.
And the acceleration of digital payments has been nothing short of remarkable over the last few years. And from the outside looking in, it seems that Nium has been leveraging this trend to offer innovative solutions, especially to businesses operating across borders. And I'm curious, are you seeing more and more demand for these solutions now?
The digitization of B2B payments is something that is really at the top of the list of almost every CFO these days. I think if you look at if you look at any survey of any CFO, and you were to ask them their top three priorities, especially during COVID and after COVID, almost every single one, I think the number is around 85% of CFOs. And this is, again, like across studies that McKinsey, Deloitte, others have done, will say that digitizing B2B payments is important. And it's similar to what I just mentioned, right? If you can reduce working capital because you don't need to worry about where the money is. If exactly where things are moving and you're not using analog ways of moving money, whether it's cash or check or writing an invoice, I think you make your ability to understand your business so much better. And look, B2B payments is a multi-trillion-dollar market. And so if you think about how much is currently not digital, there's a huge opportunity for companies like us. But I also think that given that CFOs are highlighting this as something that they know needs to change, I think that this trend will continue for a number of years moving forward.
And of course, it's not only the businesses that are changing, you're going to need to continue to change and evolve with the trends too. So given the growing reliance on things like digital wallets and alternative payment methods, how are you guys ensuring that your infrastructure can keep up with these evolving trends? Is that something that's always top of mind too?
Yeah, no, exactly. Like I think that's something that we're constantly thinking about, and we're pushing the envelope on this as much as we can, right? I think for us, it's one of the things that I always say is in order to service our customers, you have to be able to expand as much as possible. And expansion is not just about geographic expansion, but it also means that you have to be able to pay into digital wallets like an Alipay in China, like I said, like to use Pix in Brazil. We don't want to stop at one payment mechanism. If there is a business entity or a consumer that feels like they want to get paid by a bank account, by a wallet, even an issued card, or crypto, like I think all of those things are things that we should consider as ways to move money forward. So we're listening to our customers, and we're saying, hey, what are your underlying customers saying? Like, what is it that they want to get paid by? And the nice thing about having a modern tech stack is that it's relatively straightforward to add these. So we'll continue doing it. We'll keep looking at trends, and that's how we'll drive our business forward.
And for any of your customers or members of your community that might be listening, hoping for a teaser of what's on the road ahead, is there anything you can share around your future plans for Nium in terms of things like product development, especially considering the fast-paced changes in the global financial landscape right now? And I appreciate you probably can't share too much, but are there any teasers you can?
Look, I think the way that we talk about this within the product org and just generally within Nium is that we think there are some really big use cases around digitizing B2B payments. I mean, we've been talking about payroll today, but there's spend management, there's marketplaces, there's what a lot of people call the creator economy. Our goal is basically first to be able to move money anywhere in the world in any payment mechanism, just like we talked about, but then to solve the real problems, right? Just like how we talked about with payroll, where you want to make sure that somebody that's expecting money is going to get it on time. And what can you do to ensure that that happens? We're doing the same exercise across all of these major use cases and saying, what do we need to do to provide incremental value on top of the payments infrastructure that we've built that moves money globally? And that's the fun part about it. I mean, there's a lot of great new businesses that are coming out, and I think for us, like if we can service those businesses in a meaningful way and give them value above and beyond just saying, hey, I can move money from country X to country Y, I think that's what's going to be really exciting for us. And hopefully, as we help these companies grow, we can grow as well.
Well, I've loved having you on the podcast today, and I can't thank you enough for coming on here and sharing your insights with everyone listening. But before I let you go, I'm going to ask you to leave one other thing for everyone listening, and that is either a book that has inspired or means something to you that we can add to our Amazon wish list, or a song that means something to you we can add to our Spotify playlist. I don't mind which one you go for, but what would you leave us with and why?
Well, I was thinking about what would be really interesting, and one of the songs that my daughter has been singing through the house the last like 3 weeks. I don't know if George Ezra, but you're obviously from Great Britain, and George Ezra's from there. But she's been singing "Green Green Grass" the whole time, and it's such a fun poppy song that you sing it and you just feel really good about everything. So yeah, I think for me, like that song, anytime my daughter sings it or the two of us sing it together, we always smile. And so hopefully it gets the listeners to smile when they listen to it as well.
Green, green grass, blue, blue sky. Something like that. I seem to remember, yes.
You got it. See? You know it. You know it well.
I think we've just infected the earworm on everybody listening around the world. I'll add that to the Spotify playlist. And for anyone listening wanting to find out more about Nium, what's the best starting point for that and best way of contacting your team?
Well, I mean, the easiest is just to find us on the web at ni.com, but you can always find me on LinkedIn as well. And we're out there. It's I think you'll be able to find us whether it's online on Twitter, LinkedIn, or any of the above.
Well, I think your decade of experience and work at Nium just gives you this unique vantage point on the evolution of embedded payments. So I can't thank you enough for coming on here, talking about where you are, but also where the industry's heading, what needs to change, and how all of this will impact business operations at large. So just a big thank you for sharing your insights and leaving us with a little earworm too. Thank you.
Of course. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Wow, what a truly insightful, incredible conversation that was. I absolutely love Robin. He even left us with a great tune too. But I think at the heart of everything, it was some of those interesting insights and thoughts on how digital payment systems and innovative payroll solutions can actually help businesses navigate the challenges of a globally distributed workforce. And I think this is something we're going to see more and more of. And I think Robin's experience and his work at Nium is testament to the power of technology in transforming key business operations, traditional operations at that, like payroll. So I'd love to thank Robin for joining me on the podcast today, sharing his insights, but I'd love to hear your thoughts about anything we talked about here, about the global trends, about the technology at Nium, and some of the work that they're doing. Whatever it is, even if it's just a question about something completely off topic, email me now, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, just at Neil C. Hughes. And I also cordially invite you to do it all again tomorrow, where I've got another guest lined up. So a big thank you for listening as always, and until next time, don't be a stranger.